again, Year 11, and welcome to this film, which is about question 2 of the reading section of the English Language Foundation Tier mock exam that you did in 2011. Now, question 2 read as so. It said, what do we learn about the ship Queen Mary 2, or QM2? And it was a 4-mark question, and it gave you this amount of space to answer the question. Only a 4-mark question, so bear that in mind. Now really, similar to the previous question, which was about retrieving information, this is about finding information, showing that you can read and understand the text. Okay, so the key skill, I suppose, is reading and understanding, showing that you understand what it means. Now, I'll show you the mark scheme briefly. You can pause if you want to look at this in a bit more detail. To get to the higher marks, to get to 4 marks, you're showing things like clear evidence that the text is understood, clear engagement with the text and makes inferences, and I'll talk to you about what that means in a minute and when we look at a model of an answer for this. Offers relevant quotations. Really important that you put in quotations in, and makes developed references to information about the ship. So you are developing your answer there, developing your ideas. Now, that's okay, but the mark scheme sometimes can be quite hard to understand and obviously is designed for teachers. In simpler terms then, excellent responses to this answer will do the following things. First of all, they'll make 2 or possibly 3 clear points about which answer the question. What do we learn? One thing we learn is, and then whatever you want to say. Some of the points will be not so obvious. I mean, you could say, oh, we learn it's a ship, or we learn it sails to New York. You know, that's fairly obvious. Inference is about working things out that might be a bit below the surface of the text. I'll show you an example of that in action in a minute. So trying to get points that aren't necessarily really obvious. Secondly, you provide a short quotation for each point. Notice I've put emphasis on short because you haven't got time to be copying chunks out of the text, and you don't get you don't get marks for that really. A short quotation can be 2 words, 3 words. That's the sort of thing you're looking for. And thirdly, you quickly explain what each point or quotation tells us about the ship. So basically, for this question, you're looking P-E-E. Okay, point, evidence, explain, quotation being your evidence. I'll look at a model of an answer for this now. Okay, so here's an example from a student, genuine answer. They've written, the QM2 is a luxurious boat which is 113 feet longer than the original Queen Mary ship. Okay, it has outstanding facilities on board such as 14 bars, 10 restaurants and 8 whirlpools. This shows that it's a very well equipped ship and people will enjoy going on it. That is not bad, really, because it's using short quotations. You'll get marks for that. You get a couple of marks for that probably. They go on to say it takes you to the best buildings in New York, like the Empire State Building, and you also get to walk through Central Park. Now the thing is about that is they've done that thing of writing about New York and not the ship. So that bit you don't get any marks for, and they've wasted time there. So they could get rid of that whole sentence. Okay, because as it said in the mark scheme, you don't get marks for writing about New York, so you've got to stay focused on the question. It does go on to say you have entertainment on board such as live jazz, which shows that the journey will be very entertaining and you'll not get bored. I mean, yeah, okay, you can go with that. You might get a point for that. It's a bit obvious, I would say, and I suppose the other thing is that it's sort of repeating the first point that you've made, which the first point is about outstanding facilities and entertainment and bars and restaurants, and the second point is also about facilities and things like that. So really, I think you'd probably be getting, you'd maybe get 2, you'd possibly get 3 out of 4, to be honest. So it wouldn't be a disaster, but the problem is you've wasted time here by writing about things that aren't relevant to the question. We'll now look at a better answer, which answers the question a bit more quickly and concisely. Okay, so this one says, we learn that the QM2 is a very luxurious boat which has outstanding facilities. For example, it has blah blah blah, 14 bars, 10 restaurants, 8 whirlpools. This shows that the journey will be exciting and entertaining and the passengers will not get bored at all. So yeah, they've gone into a little bit more detail in the explanation. They've explained, you know, why it's good to have all these facilities, I suppose, a bit more. They've shown some inference in that they've read between the lines and concluded that because it's got all of these things, passengers won't get bored. We then go on to, secondly, we learn it's a good choice for shoppers. We see this when it says, on the way home, there's no luggage limit.
This suggests that the passengers will be able to buy lots of things in New York, but the QM2 will not charge them any more money to take it back home. That is pretty good. See, when I first read that, I thought, hang on, this person's got started to write about New York and shopping in New York. But they haven't really. The point is that the ship is good for shoppers because the ship doesn't charge them anymore to bring lots of shopping home. So they've really read between the lines. They've looked at that quote, on the way home there's no luggage limit, and they've worked out that that means that it's good for shoppers. You see what I mean? So it's a bit, when we talk in the criteria about coming up with some less obvious points and less obvious ideas, that's a good example of reading between the lines and coming up with, showing inference, and, you know, writing about things that are a bit less obvious. Okay, so that's a good answer. That would probably get 3, probably 4 out of 4, and then you'd move on. Or you might possibly do 1 more point, but I would say that's probably taken you long enough to just move straight on from there and get 4 marks.
Okay, so now you've had a look at a model, what you need to do is look again at the success criteria. If you're self-assessing now, look on your sheet, look at your answer that you wrote and see whether you were doing those things or how well you were doing those things. And if you think you were doing them really well and really clearly, give yourself 4 marks or 3 marks, and if you're not, give yourself a lower mark. To finish off thinking about this style of question, because you'll get this type of question again in your real exam. Question 2 will be the same sort of skill. It will be a different text, obviously. You won't be writing about the QM2, but it will be the same skill that you've got to show that you can do, so reading and understanding. Things I'd ask you to bear in mind for this: don't write for too long. Again, it's a lot of success in English is about timing. So you've got about 1.5 minutes for each mark. So therefore, if you've got a 4-mark question, it should be about 6 minutes. And the other thing I'd really get across to you is when it's just explain what we learn, you don't need to write about language techniques. You don't need to start saying, oh yeah, it uses metaphor or rule of 3 or repetition, because that's a language technique. That's about style. We come to that later in the paper. All you've got to do is show that you understand what it means. Okay, so do use PEE, but don't go on to say, you know, the effect of the key word is, or it uses emotive language or anything like that. Okay, so it's just get to the point. Shouldn't take you very long. 6 minutes is a maximum for this answer. Right, assess yourself now. Have a think about how you've got on, and then move on to film 3, which we'll look at the next question.